Ding ding. Life is a boxing match. In this lesson, we're going to look at the metaphor, life is a boxing match. And I call this one Eye of the Tiger, which is a phrase in a song that comes from one of the Rocky movies. Boxing is probably as old as humans are. So here we can see a picture from ancient Greece with two men boxing. So boxing has been a part of Western culture for many, many centuries. And like many other things in American culture, it became popular in America because it was popular in England. So when the British came to America, it was still a popular sport. And you can see it's still popular in American culture. Here's just a few examples of movies that are about boxing. And some of these are some of my favorite movies. And here we can see the cover of a magazine called The Atlantic. We've got from a few years ago, this is presidential candidate Mitt Romney and then President Barack Obama. Now, these two never actually boxed in real life, so this is just a picture that the magazine made up for their cover, but it illustrates the metaphor, the idea that life is a boxing match. So because these two guys had a political campaign against each other, they were viewing the campaign for president like it was a boxing match. So we can see the metaphor in a picture here on the cover of a magazine. So as we're going through boxing, we're going to look at some of the vocabulary and some of the rules of boxing. The interesting thing about the metaphor that life is a boxing match is it's a little bit of the same idea that life is a game, and it's a little bit of the idea that life is a conflict. So a boxing match is like a game because there are winners and there are losers and there are rules. But boxing is also like a conflict because there's fighting and there's weapons. In this case, the weapons are your fists or your gloves. So you're trying to defeat somebody. So you'll see some of these expressions are more like a sport or a game, and some of them you'll see with conflict as well. So the first thing here is the ring. Oddly, the place where people box is called the ring, but if you look at it, it's square. A ring is circular. So even though it's square, we still call it the ring. So we've got the boxers here in the middle of the ring. We have the referee over here watching, making sure they're following the rules. And then we have all of the people, the spectators, watching. So if you remember the metaphor, life is a game, we had the expression, life isn't a spectator sport. So here we see spectators watching these two men box. So let's get into the expressions. The first expression here is to have ringside seats. So if you look here in the picture, ringside seats are seats that are very close to or right next to the boxing ring. These are usually the most expensive seats because you can see everything very closely that's going on. So as an expression, if we say you have ringside seats, it means you're in a position where you can see or observe something very well. For example, now that everyone is on social media, we get ringside seats to each other's problems. So we get to learn about each other's problems very easily and very closely because people share so much on social media. To throw one's hat into the ring. This is kind of an odd one that it doesn't make a lot of sense now. But in the old days, if two men were boxing and one of them beat the other one, then that boxing match would be over. But if somebody else wanted to fight the winner of the boxing match, then that person would throw their hat into the ring. That just means that they want the next chance to box. So to throw your hat into the ring is to announce your intention of entering a competition or election. This one gets used the most, I think, with presidential elections or other political elections. So if somebody new is going to join the election, they'll say, I'm throwing my hat into the ring. Or for example, when a new job opens up, I plan to throw my hat into the ring. That just means that they want a chance of entering a competition, or in this case, the competition for the job. To be in someone's corner. Now, if you look here, you see this guy sitting in the corner of the boxing ring, and then these two guys over here are giving him advice or helping him out. So in boxing, each of these guys will have a corner that is their corner. So in between the rounds, then they'll go back to their corner, and the people that are supporting them will be there to give them water, to clean them up if they're bleeding or something, and to give them advice as they're sitting there to rest. So as an expression, to be in someone's corner means that you're giving them full support. So giving your full support to someone means you're in their corner. So don't be nervous about going to court. I'm in your corner. So if somebody says they're in your corner, that just means that they're there to support you. To go head to head or toe to toe. You can see what that means right here in the picture. So their toes are pointing towards each other, so they're toe to toe, and then their heads are facing each other, so they are head to head and toe to toe. This means that they're about to start a fight. So head to head, toe to toe means competing or meeting directly with someone or something else. For example, Apple and Samsung are going head to head to beat each other in smartphone sales. So that means they're about to have a competition or they're about to have a fight when they're head to head or toe to toe. Because this is how a boxing match starts. Is these two guys will come out, they'll touch gloves with each other, and then they'll start fighting. So in boxing, there's different weight classes because it wouldn't be very fair if you had somebody who was very big, like this guy here, fighting somebody who was very small or very short. So they've got different weight classes. The heaviest, I believe, is heavyweight. So we use the expression heavyweight for someone who has a lot of power in a particular business or activity. For example, the most serious candidates who run for president are usually political heavyweights. And that means if somebody runs for president, then they have to have a lot of experience or a lot of name recognition or some other kind of power if they expect to have any chance of winning. If there's somebody that nobody knows, or if they just don't have a lot of experience, then they're probably not going to win the election. So the heavyweights are the people that have the most power or experience. The opposite of this is a lightweight. Now, lightweight is actually not the lightest weight in boxing, but it's the expression that we use. So we have a heavyweight and a lightweight. So a lightweight is a person of little importance or someone who can't handle difficulty. For example, he was a real lightweight, so he dropped out of the race right away. And to use an example from the current presidential elections, we had the former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, who many considered to be a heavyweight because he's a very wealthy man. He was a very powerful man in New York. He has a lot of name recognition. So there were many people who expected him to do very well. But in the end, it seemed like he was more of a lightweight because he entered the race and then he dropped out very shortly after that. So it seemed like he couldn't handle the difficulty or he wasn't doing as well as he expected. Another way that we use the word lightweight, which I don't exactly have it here, it kind of fits with the second definition, someone who can't handle difficulty, is we use it with drinking alcohol. So if somebody can't drink very much alcohol before they get drunk, then we call them a lightweight. So like if somebody has just a half a glass of wine and they're drunk and crazy, then we would call them a lightweight. Another expression we have considering weight is to punch above somebody's weight. Like I said, in boxing, there's different weight classes. Like we have bantamweight and featherweight and lightweight and middleweight and heavyweight. So to punch above your weight means that you're fighting somebody who's heavier than you are. They're in a higher weight class. We use this as an expression to mean to get involved in a situation that appears to be above one's ability. For example, Singapore punches above its weight in the world economy. If you know anything about Singapore, it's a country, but it's a very small island country. However, they have a very strong economy, so they're able to do a lot of things in the world. So we can say they punch above their weight, which means that Singapore is able to do more than we would expect them to be able to do given the size of the country. And if you look at the picture here, you can see this little boy fighting with Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali was a heavyweight, probably the most well-known heavyweight in the United States. And this little boy, obviously, they're different weight classes. So the little boy is punching above his weight. To beat someone to the punch, I forgot to mention, so a punch is when this thing here, when you're hitting somebody, we call it a punch. To beat someone to the punch is to manage to do or say something before someone else does it. If you look at the picture here, you can see this guy. He's about to punch this guy, but this guy managed to punch him first. So this guy beat him to the punch. So he punched faster than this guy did. So when you manage to say or do something before someone else does it, you beat them to the punch. For example, he was going to eat the last piece of cake, but his wife beat him to the punch. That means she did it first. To roll with the punches is to be able to deal with a series of difficult situations. Now, if you watch a boxing match, rarely does a boxer only throw one punch. Usually they throw many punches in a series, so many punches at a time. Now, if somebody is able to successfully move out of the way or block all of the punches, then we say they roll with the punches. So they're able to deal with a series of difficult situations, because the series of difficult situations is more than one punch. It's many punches. For example, it can be tough going to school, working a job, and taking care of a family at the same time, but you've just got to roll with the punches if you want to succeed. So let's say you're having a bad week. Your car breaks down, you lose your job, your kids are not doing well in school, you get sick, all of these bad things happen. But if you're able to handle all of those things and keep working towards being successful, then we say that you're rolling with the punches. To not pull any punches, to pull a punch is to not punch as hard as you can. That's what it literally means. So it's like if I was going to punch somebody, if I was doing it as hard as possible, I wouldn't be pulling my punches. However, if you look at the picture here, you can see this adult man is boxing with this little boy. So this little boy might be punching as hard as he can, but this guy here is obviously not going to punch as hard as he can. So this guy is pulling his punches, which means he's pulling back his arm a little bit, so he's not punching very hard. So to not pull your punches is to speak in an honest way without trying to be kind. So it's really, to not pull any punches is to just say whatever you want to say, and you really don't care what other people think or feel. For example, when Donald Trump talks, he doesn't pull any punches. So he usually offends a lot of people. If you listen to Donald Trump talk or look at his tweets, he just says whatever he wants to say. He doesn't really care about people's feelings. He's not pulling any punches. He's just going full effort with his words. To come to blows. So blows is another word for punches here. So to come to blows is to have a serious argument with somebody. So this is when you're in like a speaking argument, a yelling argument, and then you start punching each other. So the argument came to blows, came to punching. For example, do you think the two countries will come to blows over this? So let's take, for example, the United States and China. So if the United States thinks that China is doing something illegal or something that it doesn't like stealing intellectual property, stealing technology, things like that. At first, the United States might say something about it. They might make some complaints about it. They might even try to pull some investments or something like that. So at first, it's just an argument with the country. But let's say it becomes more than that, so that the two countries actually start to try to hurt each other. Then we would say they're coming to blows. To duke it out is to compete or argue against each other. So duke here is another word for blow or a punch. I'm not exactly sure where this word came from. There's some different theories about it. But your fists can also be called your dukes. So if somebody says put your dukes up, that means put your hands up, put your fists up to fight. So to duke it out is to just compete or argue against each other. So we do not have the resources to duke it out in court. So here it means to fight about something. And here you can see a news headline: Taylor Swift and Kim Kardashian West continue to duke it out over Kanye West's scandal after leaked phone call. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the scandal was, but obviously these two women were not punching each other, but their argument was called duking it out. Some fights get really violent, and those fights we call knockdown, drag-out fights. So if you look here, this guy's knocked down. Let's say these two guys are fighting and they're giving all of their effort. It's just a really rough and bloody fight, and they just both keep going and going and going until just one of them falls over and they can't fight anymore. And this guy, let's say he's beaten up so badly that they have to carry him out of the ring. They would have to drag him out. So to call something a knockdown, drag out is to call it a competition or argument that lasts a long time and where everyone involved uses all their effort. For example, when President Obama tried to pass his Health Care Act, it was a knockdown, drag-out fight in Congress. And in the end, it passed without any support from Republicans. So President Obama tried for a long time to pass some kind of a health care bill, and it kept going back and forth, and the Republicans and the Democrats kept arguing, and it was a very heated argument in the country. So actually, in the old days, when people would box with each other, they would just stand in one place. And they would stand there and punch each other until one of them fell over. So until one of them was knocked down. And that person usually would have to be dragged out. To deal someone a blow, so again, a blow is a punch, is to cause someone or something, usually a plan or a hope, to fail or be affected to be affected very badly. So looking at a different metaphor, like life is a journey in a car, if we say a bump in the road, that would be like dealing somebody a blow. It's just a temporary thing, but it can sometimes be a bad thing. So you can see here, this guy is dealing him a blow. For example, getting an F in his math class dealt a blow to his plans to become an engineer. So it's a problem. It's a one-time problem. It could be a bad problem, or it could be just a simple problem. A low blow. So this is where we get rules. In boxing, there's only certain places where you can punch somebody. Those are the rules. If you look here, this shorts that he's wearing, his waistband, we call this area the belt. So in boxing, you have to hit above the belt. You cannot hit below the belt. And obviously this guy is hitting below the belt. So a low blow, a low punch, is a criticism or unkind act that is unexpected and unfair. For example, criticizing his wife's family was a low blow. And then, like I said, hitting below the belt. A low blow and hitting below the belt are basically the same thing because you're doing the same thing. So to hit below the belt is to do or say something that is unfair or an insult. For example, politicians tend to hit below the belt in their comments and political ads when they start to lose an election. To take the gloves off is to try to accomplish something using any means, usually by being less civil. So being civil means basically following the rules in a society. Now, if you look here, these two guys, they are here just to weigh themselves before a fight. This isn't even supposed to be the fight, but you can tell they want to fight with each other right now, and they're not wearing any gloves, right? So if they were to start fighting, then we would say that the gloves were off, which means when the gloves are off, you can hurt somebody else a lot more. It can be very bad. So trying to accomplish something by any means, usually by being less civil, not following the rules, we say the gloves are off. For example, people who are competing in an election are usually polite to each other at first, but after a while, the gloves usually come off and things start to get nasty. And we saw this just a few weeks ago if you paid attention to the Democratic debates. For many of the first debates, the Democratic candidates were pretty polite with each other. But then the first debate where Michael Bloomberg joined in, it got really nasty. So the gloves came off. And everybody was just attacking everybody else in very mean and less civil ways. So to lower or drop your guard or let your guard down, these are the same. So we say lower your guard or drop your guard, let your guard down. It's to stop being careful to avoid danger or difficulty. Now, if you look at these two guys boxing, this guy has his hands up and this guy has his hands down. So his guard is up and his guard is down, which means that if he throws a punch, he can't block it. His guard is down. But if he throws a punch, his guard is up. So to have your guard down, to let down your guard, is to stop being careful. So this guy is being careful. This guy is not being careful. So to stop being careful to avoid danger or difficulty. For example, salesmen try to get customers to lower their guard by being very friendly and talking about things not related to the sale. So I remember when my wife and I visited Istanbul for the first time, we were just sitting on a bench and then walking around in the historic area of the city. And we had a guy come up to us and start talking to us, asking us where we're from and what we're doing there, and just making friendly conversation. And then he tried to get us to come to his carpet shop. So he was trying to lower our guard so that he could try to sell a carpet to us. Because if he just came up to us and said, "Would you like to buy a carpet?" then we would probably put our guard up and just say, "No, thank you." But by making conversation with us, he got us to take our guard down so that it was harder to say no afterward. To take it on the chin. So here is the chin. So to take it on the chin is to accept unpleasant events bravely and without complaining. So let's say these two guys are boxing. This guy gets hit on the chin. He's taking it on the chin, taking the punch on the chin. Now, some people would just fall down, or they might back away or get out of there. But if he takes this punch and then keeps punching back, then we say he just took it on the chin. So as an expression, to take it on the chin is just to accept bad things that happen without complaining about them and not stopping. For example, a good comedian doesn't just know how to make jokes about other people, but also knows how to take it on the chin. So if a comedian can make jokes about other people, then they shouldn't get angry or upset if other people make jokes about them. To be on the ropes or have your back against the ropes. Now you can see this guy here, he's on the ropes. This means that he is in serious trouble or likely to fail. So if he's in this position, he's got nowhere to go to. It's very hard to get away from this guy because he's on the ropes like this. As an expression, it just means any situation where you're in serious trouble and probably likely to fail. For example, for a while their marriage was on the ropes, but then they started going to counseling. So does this sound like any other expression we've looked at? If you thought on the rocks, then you're right. So to say something is on the ropes is very much like saying that it's on the rocks. So we could say for a while their marriage was on the rocks, but then they started going to counseling. So on the ropes is just coming from boxing. On the rocks is coming from boats. To hang in there. We say this to encourage someone not to give up. You might have already heard this. Hang in there. If you're having a bad day, somebody says, hang in there. Now, if you look at this guy, he's hanging on the rope. So hang in there comes from boxing. Because if this guy's getting weak, he's getting tired, he might hang on the ropes in order to keep himself from falling down so that he can stay in the fight. He doesn't want to give up. So he doesn't want to give up, so he's hanging in there. And it gives him some time to get back into the fight. So for example, I know you're having a hard time right now, but hang in there. It can only get better. Don't give up the fight. Saved by the Bell. This was actually the name of a television show back in the 1980s. Or was it the 1990s? I can't remember. Anyway, So saved by the bell, we say this when a situation is likely to end in failure, but that something happens to stop the situation before the failure happens. Now, if you look here, we see this little bell and we see a boxing match. In boxing, there are many rounds. So a round is about 3 minutes. When the round starts, they'll ding the bell. When the round is over, when the 3 minutes are over, they'll ding the bell, and then the fighters get a little break, like a minute or so. They get to go to their corner. Now, sometimes you'll watch a boxing match and somebody's getting really beat up. And then they're about to get knocked down, they're about to lose, and then the bell dings. So it's like they get a little bit of extra time. So to be saved by the bell is when a situation is going to end badly, but something happens to stop that situation before it ends badly. For example, I thought the cop was going to give me a ticket, but I was saved by the bell when he got a call about an accident somewhere else and he had to leave quickly. So let's say you get pulled over by a cop. He's going to write you a ticket, but something else that's worse is happening. So the cop has to leave. He doesn't give you the ticket. So you were saved by the bell. To go down swinging. To go down swinging is to continue to fight or make strong, determined effort, even though you're likely to fail or lose. So when somebody's punching, we also say that they're swinging. A swinging is usually like a wide punch, like this. So even if somebody's losing or most likely to lose, if they just keep trying to give their best effort, even though they're going to lose, we say that they go down swinging. So like you can see here, this is Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. This guy is a professional boxer. This guy is a mixed martial arts fighter, so he's not a professional boxer. Going into this fight, he was likely to win, Mayweather was, and Conor McGregor was likely to lose, but Conor McGregor gave it his best effort. So even though he did lose, he went down swinging. So as an expression, we can say Bernie Sanders may have lost the Democratic nomination to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, but he went down swinging, which means he fought as long as he could fight, and he fought as good as he could fight. To be floored. This is to be shocked or surprised by something or someone. So if you look here, this guy's on the ground, Muhammad Ali's standing over him. He's on the floor. He's laying on the floor. So that's what it means to be floored. It's like something is so shocking or so surprising that it knocks you over. For example, everyone in the media and in the political world was completely floored when Donald Trump won the election because they all expected Hillary Clinton to win easily. It's like the news was so shocking, so surprising that it knocked them over. To be down for the count or to be out for the count. This can have a couple of meanings. So when somebody is knocked over in boxing, let's say they get knocked down like this guy here, then the referee will come in and he'll start counting. If they can't stand back up before the referee counts to 10, then they lose the count. They don't beat the count. So they are down for the count or out for the count. So what this means as an expression first is to be completely defeated or to be very sick. For example, when Redbox became popular, it put Blockbuster video rental stores down for the count. I don't know if any of you ever saw Blockbuster Video, but they were a place where you could go and rent videos. But when Redbox, those red boxes by like the gas stations and at Walmart where you can rent movies, when Redbox came out, it put Blockbuster out of business and Blockbuster completely shut down. There's no more Blockbusters as far as I know. So they are down for the count, which means they completely lost. Or if you're very sick, if you're in bed, we can say you're down for the count. That's the first definition of this. The second meaning is to be asleep. For example, finally it looks like the baby's out for the count. That just means they're fully asleep. To be a knockout. So if a boxer manages to hit another boxer the correct way or to hit them very hard, then this person will automatically lose their consciousness. They'll just go to sleep right away. They'll fall on the ground. They're not even awake. So that's what we call a knockout. Now, when we use knockout as an expression, it means a very attractive person. Usually we use this of a woman. So if there's a woman and she's very, very beautiful, we would call her a knockout. For example, she was a real knockout in her new dress. It's just saying that she's so beautiful that she knocks the men over. Just her beauty is so powerful. To throw in the towel means to admit that you're defeated and cannot do something anymore. So if you see this guy over here, he's got this towel. He's in somebody's corner. So if he sees the person that he's supposed to be supporting is losing very, very badly, then he will throw the towel into the ring in order to stop the fight. So if somebody throws in the towel, that means they're stopping the fight, they're giving up. So to throw in the towel is to admit that you're defeated or cannot do something anymore. For example, after trying to fix the leaky sink for 3 hours with no success, he finally threw in the towel and called a plumber. So if you try to do something, to fix something, and you can't do it, and you finally ask for help, then you're throwing in the towel. And we can see here's a news headline. With Colorado governor against him, maybe Kennedy should throw in the towel. That means quit the race or give up whatever he's doing. Now, when boxers practice, they use a punching bag. Actually use different kinds of bags to hit, but this is what we call a heavy bag or a punching bag. So to be a punching bag or to become a punching bag is a person or thing who is severely criticized or punished as a way for other people to express angry feelings. So if you look at this guy here, he's just punching the bag. The bag can't do anything. The bag really didn't do anything wrong. The bag is just there so he can practice. So if we call somebody a punching bag, it's a person who didn't do anything wrong, who didn't deserve anything to happen to them, but other people are criticizing them or attacking them for something for no reason. Other than that, they're just angry. For example, when things aren't going well in the country, the president often becomes a punching bag because people are looking for someone to blame. So on social media, for example, if you see a bunch of people attacking somebody else, then that person's a punching bag. Especially if the person's not fighting back. So to spar. Spar is another word for practice fight. So to spar over something is just to argue about it. And if you look at these two guys here, they're just practice fighting. This isn't a real boxing match. You can see they're wearing all the protective gear and everything. So to spar is just like a practice fight. So we use sparring as a synonym for arguing. For example, Democrats and Republicans constantly spar with each other over taxes and government spending. And shadowboxing. So if you look here, this guy's boxing. He's practice boxing, but there's nobody else there. There's only his shadow. So it's like he's fighting his shadow. So to shadowbox is to make a show of dealing with a problem without actually dealing with it. So this guy's not actually boxing anybody. He's just making a show of boxing. So we use this expression when somebody's making it look like they're doing something, but they're not actually doing anything useful. For example, politicians like to look like they're doing a lot for the people who voted for them, but a lot of it is just shadow boxing. Not much really gets done.